News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine on this Wednesday. Nick Barris here, and we are going to invite you to join in the conversation as we continue to do a series of shows with regard to the coronavirus pandemic. And, you know, with the information now that we know the governor is lifting the stay-at-home order in the next week or so, the focus here at News Channel 5 is going to be on the rebound, rebounding from this pandemic and giving you the information you need. That's going to be the theme of many of the stories that we do. So it's the rebound, and I'm hearing a big part of that, and so will our guest this morning. I know so many of you right now wondering about stimulus checks, unemployment, still a lot of questions, a lot of bugs in the system, taxes, how that plays out, and other financial questions. We're going to get to that. I want to remind you, you're watching right now on News Channel 5 Plus. If you're on your TV set, we also are streaming live on Facebook at newschannel5.com. I'm picking up on that. People can join us with messages or comments there from anywhere in the world, frankly. And we've had people from Europe watching as well. If you have questions or comments, I'll try to pass those on to our guest. And let's delay that no longer. Joining us this morning is our financial expert, Dr. Friday. Good morning to you, ma'am. Can you hear me all right?
Good morning. I can hear you perfectly. Yes, good morning.
It's awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Doc. And it's always been a busy show when you've come on. We're going to open up the lines and take those calls and then take the messages also on Facebook as well. But I wanted to start with you just right off the top. What have you been dealing with yourself? I know that you deal with a lot of taxes, and we've got the tax postponed until July 15th now instead of just the day that passed. Give me some insight into what you're hearing from some of your clients.
Right. So we have a couple different things. Under the stimulus package, they also delayed. So if some people have to take required minimum distributions, they delayed that. So if you took it out in February or any time after that, you can redeposit those funds, and that way you don't have taxable income possibly in 2019, because some people don't really need the required minimum distribution. It's a mandate. A lot of people are looking for their stimulus checks. There's 140 million checks going out. They're mailing out about 5 million every single week. So you can see it's not something that's happening instantly, but the website isn't maybe working as well as the IRS had hoped. It may be confusing the issue a little bit. Trying to reach the IRS, as you know, under the COVID-19 virus, they pretty much closed down all of their sites, so there is no phone line, so it's very hard and frustrating. So a lot of people are contacting accountants like myself or enrolled agents to find out what can they do. Is my Social Security going to be taxed? Is my, is this stimulus check taxable? Is my unemployment taxable? And these are really big concerns, and some are and some aren't.
When you talk about the money being sent out on the stimulus, and I don't know if you've heard otherwise, obviously the fastest way to get the money, and many have already, is through direct deposit, right? And as far as checks being sent out to folks, if they don't have direct deposit set up with the IRS, are they already going out, to your knowledge? I was understanding that it was going to be May 1st that most of those start going out.
Right, you're correct. My understanding is it's not going to be to the first week of May that they'll start actually sending paper checks, and people on Social Security and VA benefits that usually would get a direct deposit. They held back a little of that because there's a number of those individuals that are also watching or raising children under the age of 17. So they wanted to give them time to go to the website and put in the non-filer information so that the people would actually get the additional, $600 for the dependent or whatever. So they just wanted to make sure they were giving enough money to all the people working. So that has been slightly delayed.
Let's talk about now, too, who does and who does not get the stimulus. And really, it's a short list of those who would not. And I know that information's been out there, but I still get a lot of questions on it. But really, two groups. The one, obviously, if you are claimed as a dependent by anyone, you're not going to get a check, right? And who else? I guess it has something to do with child support.
Well, right. There's actually probably three different categories. You have, if you're claiming your child that's 17 and older, or your parent that may be living with you, an older person, and they've always just lived off Social Security, so we would claim them as a dependent. You might want to rethink that in the year of 2019. And if you've already filed your 19, nothing is stopping you from amending 19 and redoing that particular situation. You will still get the credit because this is kind of an advance credit on our 2020 tax returns. So So if for some reason you maybe had a baby in 2020 in February, that child would be entitled to it, but you probably won't get the credit until you file in 2021 for that. The other group, of course, you said if someone is behind on child support, if you have back child support, not if you're normally making all your payments, this is someone that's in the rears. That money will go to the person that you owe the money to, the husband and wife that's raising the child. It will go into your account and help pay off that debt. The third would be people that are not U.S. citizens. So if you're here and you don't have a valid Social Security card or a valid green card, you probably are not going to also see any of the stimulus.
Question with regard to the child support, and I've gotten this online from some of our Facebook followers. If a couple is married, okay, and one of them had a child prior to the marriage and is behind on child support, does that mean neither of them will get a stimulus check, or only the parent of that child if they are married?
That's a great question, because the IRS may not be able to know which one is or isn't the one in the rears. I mean, it would seem like it would make sense, this Social Security number. I would say that you would be able to file the injured spouse situation and get the stimulus. I'm just not sure if it'll be something we'll have to file on the next tax year to get the money, or if you file married filing separately, which sometimes we like to do in those cases, because all of their refund also goes to the back child support. So the answer would be, if you already have an injured spouse on the tax return, because you usually end up keeping your refund, the rest of your other spouse that has the child support issue, their money would go to that. Those people will be fine. But if in other circumstances you don't have one of those, I would say at this point the money, at least $1,200 would, maybe all $2,400 would go towards the rears.
Okay. And real quick on this before we get to the phone calls. Several people, especially on Social Security, get their benefit on a card. We talked about these express cards, some of these other ones that are out there, and they're wondering whether or not, and we understand they'll qualify for a stimulus, whether or not the money is going to go to those cards.
Right. I've been trying to watch the Social Security Administration website to see if they've had anything in addition. My understanding is still, if it's a legitimate bank account, which means it has to have a routing number and an account number, they will be making direct deposits. If it is a card, an American Express card or some sort of funded card, you will be receiving it in a check format. Okay.
So the point there is, if you get it, if you have a card, it doesn't mean you're not going to get the benefit. It just means you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, because those getting it by mail, it's going to be a month down the line, or, well, actually starting May 1st, right?
Right. And I would say, I mean, again, anyone that can have their banking information in the system is probably going to get their money much faster than the person that's mailing it. And if you haven't filed a tax return in a very long time and didn't update your information with Social Security Administration, that's where you're going to need to make sure that you have gone on as a non-filer to the irs.gov website and made sure your address is correct, because if they're going to end up mailing you a check, it may be that you've moved a few times since you started receiving your Social Security.
And if you can clarify this, another comment coming in on Facebook, is the stimulus check taxable income, or is it something that you have to pay back?
That's a great question. I get a lot of that. The stimulus check is not taxable income. In fact, if for some reason you end up with too much money, maybe you had a child in the house in 2018 and that child was qualified, you haven't filed your 19, they went ahead and sent you the money for that child, it is not paid backable, it is not taxable. So if the government kind of makes a mistake, I'm talking about little mistakes, I'm not talking $1 million, then I would assume that you won't have to worry about any of that. It's not going to be reportable, but it will be reported if you file a 2020 return. It is considered an advance. Even though you won't have to pay it back, you will be reporting how much you receive.
Okay, so in a way, you'll pay a little bit of tax on that in 2020, perhaps. Not paying it back, but you have to just let them know that you received it.
Exactly. That's my understanding. It will have no effect on your future refunds.
Interesting. It's confusing, isn't it, Doctor? It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Let's take some phone calls for you before we take our first break, and we'll squeeze in Joy real quick off the top. Joy, good morning. What's your question?
Good morning to you.
Hi.
I have a question, actually, just a general question, but it's something that was mentioned on your station, I believe. Of all the thousands of cases or people that were tested in Santa Clara, this is an example, Santa Clara, California, you on your station, I believe, said there were 80,000 cases that were tested positive. Now, I assume that means those were tested positive but did not have the full-blown case of the coronavirus laid up in the hospital. So if all those people are out walking around, then they're passing it around.
Okay, well, I don't have the specific numbers, and I understand she's going more toward the pandemic and the spread. We're going to be doing more shows on that, but that, ma'am, doesn't really apply to what we're talking about this morning. Let's see, we'll squeeze in Alton real quick here. Alton, good morning, Alton. What's your question? I hope it's something financial.
Hey, good morning. This is Alton calling from Georgia.
Okay.
I have a question about the stimulus check.
Sure.
So here's a little bit of my situation. So I did not file in 2018, but I just filed on April the 5th of 2020. And every time I log in to check my status on the IRS website, I'm getting the message unable to determine if I'm eligible at this time. I'm thinking that's what it says.
Yeah, I get the same thing. I get the same thing.
Yeah. And I just received my tax refund last week, but I've yet to get any updates on the IRS website.
Okay.
I just want to know, do you guys have, any idea on, what's going on? Or
Okay, that's a good question. I'm the same way. Dr. Friday, I've logged on myself and gone through it, put in my social security number, all the information, trying to get just a status, and then it comes up and says we cannot determine at this time, whatever, I mean.
Right. That's an error message that a lot of people, I have gotten more photos of that screen sent to me saying, what does this mean? What am I supposed to do? I'm going to be honest. I think the website is overloaded. In his situation, because there are quite a few people that have filed their 19 return, haven't filed prior years, maybe for a number of years, or maybe just 1 or 2 years. His just hit the system because he just got the refund. As you know, it takes almost 21 days. It's not in the, I don't believe in his case, it probably hasn't hit the refund system yet because it's such a new return. Usually it can take up to 60 days for a tax return to truly post if you're physically calling and speaking to a representative. In the case of other individuals that have filed every single year, have always had a situation, I think the individuals that actually owe money every year, those individuals will probably end up with checks, but that error code is just, I think, a overload of the system, so it comes up with that error code is my best guess on that. I would not say that does not mean that you're not getting a refund check or a stimulus check. It doesn't mean that you're not in the system. It's just keep in mind there's 140 million people that's supposed to be able to get this rebate or this stimulus, and no one website can totally and that's the same website that we go in and check for people's actual refunds, making sure that the IRS is actually sending. So you've got a lot of people looking for their refunds and also looking for their stimulus. So I just don't think the system's actually working as well as they would have liked.
I gotcha. Doctor, you're right. And the thing about this is that it's frustrating. It's hard to get your mind around those numbers you just said. But when you as an individual are desperately waiting for the stimulus check to get by, that's your focus, and you get frustrated. But I'm glad you said that, because I was wondering myself. I think you're right. I can't get through either. I was putting in the proper information. It doesn't mean you're not getting a check. It means it's so overwhelmed they can't get back to you. Now, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got more calls waiting for you online, and also other questions here, and several good ones here that I'll pull off of this and give you a chance to answer off Facebook. We're streaming at newschannel5.com, or you can call the number on the screen. More with Dr. Friday, our financial expert, right after this.